Hey everybody, I'm Roy Canning.
I'm Wendy Yee.
And I'm Chris Yee.
And today we're taking a look at Mists Over Carcassonne.
Wait, I can't see the mist. It's so heavy.
This is the cooperative version of Carcassonne with lots of
People
mists
usually describe mist as heavy.
and lots of ghosts.
Thick,
Yeah, like
right?
a thick, I guess it would be thick, less heavy.
Yeah.
The weight of the mist.
This is going great.
This is going amazing. Anyway, let's go ahead and get straight to the overview.
Here's a setup for a game of Mists Over Carcassonne. This is a cooperative version of the game. That's the main rules over here. But I'm also going to talk about a small little addendum they have here to play the expansion tiles and ghost pieces in a competitive fashion. I'll talk about that very briefly at the end. Mostly you're trying to play on one of 6 levels of difficulty as shown on here. And they all add some new little mechanisms in. Generally speaking, you're trying to reach a certain victory point threshold. As soon as you earn that many points all together as a team, then you've won. If ever you run out of these ghosts, if you ever have to add one out to the table and there are none left in the supply, you will lose, or if you don't hit the point threshold by the time you run out of tiles. Now, on a turn, you're going to do the normal Carcassonne thing. You take a tile and you add it to the board, and then you can choose to add a meeple. If you close off areas with meeples on it, then you'll score points. You can match up. You'll notice that there's a new tile face. There's the cities and the roads and the grass as per normal, but there's also this mist that's growing around. Every time that you add a tile with mist to it, you'll have to add that many ghosts onto the board unless you can line up the mist to existing mist, in which case, like this, you can put one fewer out there. And if you're ever able to completely enclose a mist area, then you get to get rid of all of the ghosts that are in that mist. You can also choose to put ghosts against just plain grass like this. This counts as grassland, but this mist will never be closed off, and therefore you'll have a harder time removing ghosts from here. So if I go ahead and do this as my placement, I put out a ghost, and the pink player can choose to put one of the meeples on either a road or a city, and if they do city like this, now let's say that the yellow player draws this tile. They can put one of the meeples over here into the city and try and build together. And let's say on the red player's turn they draw this one here. They can close this city off. They have to add 2 ghosts up here. But now they have enclosed a city completely that has 2 players' meeples on there. And so now you can score up. If there's only one color, then you would collectively earn points, 2 points per city piece. So 8 points would be scored here. But because there's an equal number of 2 different players, you can score points for both, and because it's a collective scoring, you can jump up to 16. Now the other option is that any time that you would close off something and you would score points from it, let's say that this pink player put a road out here, a legal placement, then they could choose to either get the 2 points for this road, or they could choose to remove up to 3 ghosts off of a single tile. These starting areas over here count as 4 tiles, basically. That's how you're going to try to manage the ghosts and how you're going to try to win points. Big points from cities, some points from roads, but also you can use scoring opportunities foregoing the points to wipe out ghosts. Now there are some other little rules here. There's a new land type of castles. Castles can have a worker put on them, and when the castle is completely surrounded on all 8 sides, diagonally or orthogonally, then you will score 2 points per tile around it that has mist on it, including itself. And then there are also cemeteries, which are pretty tricky things here where they will cause more ghosts to come out. But once you completely surround a cemetery, then you'll be able to get rid of all of the ghosts on that tile, but you then have to sacrifice one of the meeples that's sitting out here waiting to be scored. They'll have to go die in the fields of Carcassonne. As I mentioned, there are 6 levels of difficulty with bigger point thresholds, or you'll put these little markers here on the board, so by the end of the first stack of tiles, players will have to have earned 10 points. And then by the end of the second stack of tiles, players will have to have gotten up to, say, 30 points, and then at the end of the game, they'll have to have reached whatever the point threshold is. And then there's a very difficult 6th version of it where players have to score points individually rather than collectively as a group. So that's the cooperative experience. Let's talk really quickly about how the competitive one works. If you use the if you use the mist over here, you can ignore that. You don't follow the normal rules, but instead you can add ghosts onto areas where other players are trying to score. And then if they score, they'll earn 2 points fewer per ghost that's on there. And if ever you can add 3 ghosts out onto one of their meeples, you actually remove them from the board before they get the chance to score. Let's talk really briefly about using this as a competitive expansion. You can play with just this or add in other tiles. And basically what happens is, instead of having ghosts out here as a loss condition, when you could add ghosts out, if players have a meeple sitting out here, on your turn, if you were to add out ghosts and such, you can add a ghost to another player's meeple sitting out here, and that's going to reduce the scoring potential of that fella by 2 points. And they can have up to 3 ghosts on them. When the third one comes out, it'll actually remove that meeple from being able to score out here. The cemeteries are ways that you can get more workers. If you can completely surround this area, then you'll get an additional one of these workers. What you'll do is you'll take the new workers here, which you'll notice are holding little torches or lanterns or something, and then you'll also use base Carcassonne meeples, though basic ones can be ghosted and scared off, whereas these ones are called guards, and they will never be scared off by ghosts. And so you can get more of these guards. You'll start with 2 of these, and you'll start with the normal 5 Carcassonne meeples instead, and then the castle is going to score, as in the cooperative mode, 2 points per tile around it with mist on it. So that's the competitive version. Really, I think the base of this, what is going to draw people, is this cooperative version, so let's talk about it.
So Mists of Carcassonne basically takes the game of Carcassonne, but then adds this pressure of trying to not have the ghosts, like have too many of them on the board.
Oh my goodness, we died so many times. I guess you die, right, if there are enough ghosts?
Yeah, I guess you get overwhelmed by ghosts and you lose the game. And normally there's 15, right? So, and then it can kind of scale from there and be less ghosts that you have to try to take care of and things like that. But the difficulty in this game can scale a lot depending on the version you're playing of it.
I think this is interesting for me, especially trying to think about a review and rating this. I went into this thinking it was a campaign in the sense of you do level 1, you do level 2, you do level 3, you move through. There's not a storyline to it. So it's not like, ooh, this is why there are ghosts, this is why. I mean, I guess maybe there's a little bit in the box that I probably didn't read about it. But I definitely went into that mindset of like, ooh, we're going to be working through this game. Am I just completely off, Chris? You look very confused.
I don't think there is even an explanation. They're like, yo, there's mists.
And there's ghosts.
And there's ghosts.
Yeah, so I'm just saying I went into this with a different perspective from what I came out of it with. This is one of those that there are 6 different possible ways of playing, and each one of those ways of playing has a lot of similarity, and it just gets harder.
It gets much harder.
And so there was part of me that was like, oh, I need to get through all of these and win all of these, and I haven't. And that surprised me.
I didn't necessarily feel the pressure to do that too much. I played the second version the most, mostly because it's like you use all the tiles at that point. It's definitely not that hard, but there can still be tricky situations, like if the graveyards fill up too fast. But then you do have the options as you go higher up with the whole like the pressure to get to a certain point score before running out of the different stacks. That adds like a whole different dimension to it as well.
Sure.
Yeah, what is you guys' experiences with Carcassonne in general?
It was one of the first few games that we played in hobby gaming.
It was a little bit like, I mean, we were introduced to a lot of the other ones first. Like we'd play definitely Dominion first and then Ticket to Ride and a couple of others. Like Carcassonne was one that we jumped into after a few years of like gaming kind of seriously.
Interesting.
Like we should try this one.
We had already been to a convention because I remember getting it for dirt cheap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think we got it for like $15 or something like that at a flea market convention thing.
I've played like a massive amount of Carcassonne, and one of the things I was saying this morning is that the regular Carcassonne is like the most rated board game on Board Game Geek, which means like it's one of, if not the most popular board game, which is kind of crazy to think about because you're just like, Carcassonne, it's a tile laying game with the meeples. But meeples are so universal in board games these days.
It's what defined the name for meeples.
This is where it started.
Yeah.
And I think like having a cooperative version of that is pretty interesting. And the way they've gone about it, I didn't know that this would work, but I think it kind of does.
I think it does, because I really like Carcassonne more than Wendy does. We both kind of like it a lot, and it dipped a little bit more for you.
It's definitely dipped for me. It's especially because we play it 2-player, and I think at 2-player it gets really head to head.
I love it. Yeah, I don't know, but
So
it is funny taking some of those things that have made you like it a little bit less at 2, like sneaking into each other's ways and stuff, and it makes that really beneficial to do in this version of it, because if you can creep up into someone else's cities, if you can slide into their DMs, by DMs I mean city, then you get to score double for that, basically.
Right.
And so I like the way that it encourages you to kind of play that, like some of those meaner tactics from Carcassonne,
but cooperatively.
Right.
It's so interesting. And then sometimes it gives you that pressure of like you have this medium-sized city, but you're about to be overwhelmed with ghosts, and you're like, anytime you actually score in the game, instead of scoring the actual points, you can remove up to 3 ghosts from a single tile.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get put in these situations where it's like, I would get a little bit of a score from this, but the ghost situation is so out of control, we kind of have to waste points to get rid of ghosts right now. And you're always constantly trying to set up cooperatively, like the entire map is as a whole. It's always interesting. It's like, okay, we're going to put the city over here so that way we can cap the city off and get rid of ghosts with it. Okay, we're building this road. I'm on the road. But we really need to close a road. So that road hasn't closed yet, but we finished this graveyard. So we're going to put your road guy on the graveyard now. You know, so there's these interesting things where it's like, oh, we need to kind of build stuff in different interesting ways that you normally wouldn't in Carcassonne, but because you're doing it cooperatively in this game, it's very different. And it gives you just a different aspect and a different thought on the whole Carcassonne mechanics.
It kind of reminds me of playing The Crew a little bit, where if you've played trick-taking games before, you're like, oh yeah, I know trick-taking games.
I get it.
Oh,
wait, we're supposed to work together. I'm supposed to be throwing this trick to you. You have to win this trick, you know, that sort of thing.
And that's what it is here, where you're like, I would usually never set up a city like this to let someone else jump into it. But I know to do that, so I will. You know, it's fun kind of turning it on its head a little bit to be like, yeah, come on, jump on in. Let's make this enormous city that everyone can kind of score with.
Does it help you feel like you appreciate the mechanics in a different way, or just a little bit more?
I think so, especially when like you reveal that tile and everybody's like, "Oh man, there's 3 ghosts on this one. This one's terrible." If we put it right here, that would immediately nullify the ghosts. But if we put it over here, that would close off this gigantic city we're working on. There's all these different aspects to it, and like each time, sometimes you draw a tile and everybody's like, "We know where that one goes. It goes there." Thank God that tile finally came up, you know. And then there's times where you're all mulling over like, should we work on getting the graveyard? Should we try to finish off this castle? Should we like put more on this road? Should we build it more on this city? It takes like that aspect of like in the regular Carcassonne when you reveal it and people are maybe giving you a little bit of suggestions of where to go, but they really don't want you to like fight in on their own stuff. This makes the whole aspect of it like working together a lot, which is kind of fun.
It is interesting. Did you play the competitive version with these tiles?
I have not played the competitive version with these tiles.
So we did, and I didn't feel like it was anything special. Like,
I thought it was the opposite of special. I thought it was not
you just
worth,
didn't like it?
If you're like, I don't want to play this cooperative mode that they keep talking about, I just want to know, is this worth getting as a competitive expansion? I don't think so. I don't like it as a competitive mode. You can knock each other's ghosts, or you can send ghosts to each other to knock your meeples off of the board and whatnot.
Unless you have the super strong meeples and those can't be knocked off.
Yeah. Not worth it. We're going to finish talking about this as a cooperative game because I think that's why you would get this one.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to start with my score. I'm going to give this a 7. Playing it at 2, I enjoy this more than regular Carcassonne, at least at this point in my life, just because it is very, very head-to-head. So I did enjoy it. I went into, like I said, with the wrong mindset, I think, for the campaign, and so that was, to me, a little bit disappointing. But being able to, it's not a campaign, and so in my mind, I thought it was. And so being able to step away from that now and come back to it, like, I think this is a solid 7 for me. Like, I enjoyed it. I think it was a lot of fun. I appreciate how it lets me see those mechanics in a different light, and at the same time, it's pretty lucky in the sense of like, am I going to get those pieces that I need? Am I going to be able to close that city before the ghosts kill us and we run out of, tiles in the stack and whatever? So I think the first few games are kind of right at my level, and then those harder ones they're just too hard for me in the sense of like having fun at it.
What do you think, Chris?
And out of curiosity, so you give this a 7. What would you rate, you think, regular Carcassonne at this point?
I'd probably make it a 6 now. I think I feel very like mediocre about Carcassonne now.
Wow, that's wild.
I think that this is the hard thing about the way we do rating is that I look at Carcassonne as a game not for me, and I think like it gets a good score. Like it is a well-made game. It's something that I've thoroughly loved in the past, but for me and how I'm gaming right now, it's a 6.
Interesting. So you would rate this one higher for your tastes. I'm coming in at an 8 for Mists Over Carcassonne. I like this a lot. I think that's really fun to play. It's really cool that it is, a cooperative twist on stuff that you're already familiar with. The way that they do the ghosts feels almost a little bit like Pandemic-ish.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Super.
We're like, oh, I understand.
They just keep coming.
Yeah.
They never explode though. They'll just like
but you
burst
get that
everywhere.
ebb and flow of the pressure. So I think it does it in a nicely approachable way. I would give the original Carcassonne like a 9. Like I still prefer playing it competitively.
Oh, wow.
But what's neat about this, I think, too, is that there are so many different levels of difficulty. I don't need to touch option number 6. That's just clearly too hard for me. You know what I mean? And you might say like, oh, come on, dummy, just play good or whatever. Like, no, I'm good sitting at like 2, 3, 4. Like those ones are very fun for me.
For sure.
And they're also quick. If you lose, you're like 15 minutes in the game. You're like, shuffle them up, let's play again. That's an 8. I really like it. I'd rather still play the original competitive, but this is a cool addition to the Carcassonne-verse. The Marvel Carcassonne universe.
There you go. For me, I'm giving this an 8.5. I had a blast with this. I enjoy Carcassonne, even though it's not my style of game normally, because it's very Euro-y, getting points, putting things out. But I grew up playing Carcassonne. I mean, I guess growing up playing Carcassonne sounds weird to say, but I have a long history with Carcassonne, playing it with my family, and like my dad really enjoys it. And I play this game over and over again. I played this individually with Wendy, and individually with Chris, and with my mom and dad, and with one of my gaming friends. I played this a ton of times, and it's just one of those games where when we lose in the game, we immediately just shuffle it back up and play again. It's just a blast to play over and over again, trying to figure out how to cooperatively work together. And I've had games where we're like right on the edge of getting points, and then the ghosts take us out. And it's like, one more time, let's do it again. And I've just had so much fun playing this that I'm giving it an 8.5. I had a lot of fun with it. I think if you like Carcassonne and you want to play that cooperatively with other people, this actually did a really good job of it, and I'm surprised by that. I do like this better than regular Carcassonne at this point, just because that's not normally my style of game. And I still think Carcassonne's a really good game, but I enjoy cooperative experiences with people even more. Yep. So this one pushes it up for me even more. So Mists Over Carcassonne, that's cool.
Very cool.
It is
cool.
nice and quick. Like I do like that it's a quick, solid thing.
It's interesting. We don't really discuss ratings and stuff. We usually try to kind of guess ascending order.
Yeah.
We totally nailed it because you.
Well, I knew that was probably going to be higher than you, so I passed it over.
Yeah. Yeah, you have played this with tons of people, and you've gone out of your way to teach it to tons of people. So I was like, Roy really likes this one.
Yeah, and it's very much an out of the box sort of thing for me. So I've had fun with it. But yeah, that is Mist of Carcassonne. Don't get too scared, but that's the game. I've been Roy Canning.
I'm Wendy Yee.
And I ain't afraid of no ghosts. My name is Chris Yee.